back to my book corner for another story time with me, Rockin' Ryan. Now today we have got a fairy tale. It's not the Three Little Pigs. It's not the Billy Goat's Gruff. It's not Snow White or Sleeping Beauty. It is actually the story of Cinderella. But this story might not be the version that you think it's going to be, because even though it's me reading it, it's not me that's wrote it. It is Humphery the Bookworm. And let me tell you, it definitely has nothing to do with glass slippers. I can tell you that. So, are we ready for the story? Let's turn on those listening ears, click! And I think we are ready for Cinderella as told by Humphery Bookworm, illustrated by Laura Wood. Here we go. Get ready. Humphery the Bookworm is always hungry. So hungry, in fact, that today he has eaten 2 books, a newspaper, 5 letters and Max's homework. And that was just for breakfast. Last night, Humphery told Max all about the big sad wolf and the mean little pigs. That doesn't sound right, does it? Now, he knows what really happened. Max is determined to set the record straight. He's taken Humphery to school to tell his class that there were 2 sides to every story, and that they shouldn't believe everything they read about the big bad wolves. Mum packs Max's lunchbox and puts a leaflet in there for Humphery. Humphery's too small to carry his own lunchbox, and besides, he hasn't got any arms. Humphery doesn't get the chance to eat his leaflet. By lunchtime, he has eaten 2 textbooks, 3 spelling tests, and a poster. Mrs. Miller says that Humphery has to go home now because he's eating her register. Oh dear, what a very hungry bookworm. Mum comes to collect Humphery early, but he is still so exhausted from his day out that he won't tell any stories tonight. Mum tells a story instead. It is all about Cinderella, her 2 ugly sisters, and a handsome prince that she meets at a ball. That isn't how it happened, says Humphery crossly as Max carries him up to bed. Cinderella didn't have 2 ugly sisters. She had 2 ugly blisters. She went to a ball and had a fall, and there was no prince, just Vince. He was a landscape gardener. Look, there he is. Not quite the story that we know, is it? She definitely had 2 ugly sisters and not 2 ugly blisters on her feet. Why don't you tell me what really happened, suggests Max, climbing into bed. Humphery clears his throat importantly. Once upon a time, he begins, there lived a young woman who was very beautiful and very vain. She spent so long admiring herself in the mirror above the fireplace that the bottom of her dress became covered in cinders, and so she was called Cinderella. Cinderella was very fond of dancing and attended party after party, ball after ball. She whirled and twirled and sashayed and swayed, until one day 2 angry blisters appeared on the soles of her feet, and she could dance no more. Cinderella was terribly upset. That night there was to be a grand ball at the palace, but she couldn't possibly go. Try as she might, she could not cram her poor swollen feet into her party shoes. The 2 ugly blisters throbbed and ached, and Cinderella wept bitterly. Just then, her fairy godmother appeared, clutching plasters and slippers. You mean glass slippers? Interrupts Max. No, I don't, snapped Humphery. This is what really happened. I'm not wearing those, said Cinderella, eyeing the pink fluffy slippers with disgust. Suit yourself, snapped the fairy godmother, but you'll miss the ball, and Vince Charming is going to be there. Cinderella swallowed her pride She wore the pink fluffy slippers and the plasters, but her feet were still too sore to dance. Look at her poor feet. Oh, my goodness me. She did enjoy herself, though. She spent the evening chatting away to Vince Charming, who didn't seem to care at all about her slippers. In fact, he rather liked them. Cinderella wanted to leave the party before anyone noticed her slippers. She had flip-flopped all the way out of the ballroom and down the front steps when suddenly she stumbled and fell. She landed in a heap on the palace lawn, and in an effort to hide her fluffy slippers, she threw them into a hedge. Imagine Vince's surprise the next day when he came across Cinderella's slippers poking out from the box hedge that he was pruning. He spread the word that as soon as he found the owner of the fluffy pink slippers, he would marry her. Alas, nobody at the ball had noticed anyone wearing slippers, and Cinderella was too embarrassed to admit that they belonged to her, though she clearly wanted to marry Vince. Soon, everyone wanted a pair of fluffy slippers. In fact, Cinderella was the only person to wear party shoes to the next ball at the palace. Everyone else was flip-flopping about in the brightest, fluffiest slippers that you could possibly imagine. At last, Cinderella was confident enough to tell Vince that the fluffy pink slippers belonged to her, and of course, they married and lived happily ever after. So you see, says Humphrey as he finishes his tale, you don't always have to be like everyone else. Good, says Max. It would be ever so boring if we were all the same. Exactly, said Humphrey. But Humphrey, yawns Max as he settles down to sleep. What happened to all the books about Cinderella and Vince Charming, the landscape gardener? Humphrey looks sheepish. I ate them, he says. The end. Well, that was a very different version to the story that we listened to at nursery, and I'm sure the version that you've all listened to at home when you get read stories by your mummies and daddies and nannies and granddads. But I quite liked it though. Swapping glass slippers for nice comfy fluffy slippers. But Humphrey is right, and so is Max. If we were all the same, life would be very, very boring. So it's very important that no matter what your differences are, that they are celebrated, because there is only one you in this world, and that is the best of all. And with that story, I think it's time for a nice sleep. So let's all close our eyes nice and tight. No snoring, and I will see you back here for Sunday's story in my book corner with me, Rockin' Ryan. But for now, bye-bye.
Thank you.